to another episode of the Heartland Author Podcast. I'm Aaron Apollo Camp. For today's episode, I have the honor of interviewing blogger, author, and human rights advocate Cetvies. I'm here with Cetvies, and I apologize if I mispronounced your name. How do you pronounce your name?
But Cetvies, but it doesn't matter how you pronounce it.
A Cetvies? Okay.
Yeah.
Who is a blogger and an author of 3 books. Cetvies, welcome to the Heartland Author Podcast.
Thank you, Aaron.
Feel free to introduce yourself to our listeners.
Okay, well, I'm Cetvies. I'm a blogger. I write a lot on anything, but also on human rights. I've studied human rights, as a single honor at the university, and I still read quite a lot about it. So my website is called in the name of humanrights.com.
Now, your blog is about mainly about human rights related topics. Is that correct?
Not really. What I've done with my blog is that I put human rights issues. Usually, it's issues that are quite unknown or very not developed by the mass media. It's so my decision, let's say editing decision, has been to put this subject in priority, my first post are, and after it's everything else I write about, which is not mainly about human rights, in fact. Funnily enough, which is a bit, which would be around social and political sciences, more than human rights. But what is appearing first on the blog is a problem such as censorship in China, in particular, LGBT persecution. In many countries in Africa, in the Middle East, you might be killed and quote unquote legally via courts, and you may be killed. To have been identified as an LGBT person, for example. I've got a campaign about veganism. I like to campaign about veganism because we found ourselves in this strange situation where people love animals if they had been lucky enough to meet animals. Because when you be born with people, in town, and there are certainly people who haven't been far enough from town to even have an opportunity to meet animals, and you found in completely stupid, incredible, unbelievable kind of situation where people who love animals end up eating them every day. So is one of these cultural reflex that people have, and that stay unquestioned, and sometimes people are in really big shock, understanding the contradiction that are not tellable in their life. So if the mind manage to link the love of animal, which is a love for another species, or for other species that is naturally come, basically. It's just the respect for another being, yes. And this inexplicable way of life, that is to say end up killing them and eating them every day. It's not tenable. It's why I like campaigning on veganism, is that it doesn't make sense, basically, this eating meat story. So
Now, how often do you typically write blog posts for your blog?
uh, alors, this me, I've got a big problem. It's about editing, because I write on more than one document, and the process that I imply organization and editing and so forth. It takes me very long to publish it, and also when my post doesn't have an average length, I don't do that. I know that for internet search reason, it is often preferable to have not too short but not too long post, for for it to be found by search engine and so forth. But well, I admit, me, I don't do this because I want to keep it nice and flowing for the reader. But that someone doesn't have to click 10 times for no real reason. So I like when on my blog you can click and there's like 50 pages available at once. So it's the reason is to be reader friendly. Also, when you've got a website, unless they are very elaborated ones, it's in fact, and it's why many a lot of time spent on the editing aspect, is that it's very difficult to organize. They are not sophisticated enough to organize. Only to prioritize your post, you've got to do it with dates, and yes, it's much more complicated than it should be, basically. So my post is one, I've got my writing part, which everything I write I post. So this is really depending on how much I've been writing, and well, my writing is irregular, and the reason is commitment elsewhere. Yeah? Commitment, to be honest, that I haven't chosen every time. It's just that I can't leave. I, yeah, things that I have to do to get money, basically. Because if not, I would have liked to be much more devoted to it. So, because what I find is that if you're not devoting to writing, as far as I'm concerned, yeah, then the magic goes. Because yes, it's simple as when you write it's an attempt at delivering what you live and how you live, and this ask introspection also is certainly ask to study the subject toward which you are if you like to deepen. And so yeah, and what I do, it depends on which blog, because I've got a few blogs, but my main one is in the name of human rights, but it's linked to other blogs, and I collect the news that I think is relevant, and so this is something else. Maybe every 6 months, I think there's enough to say yes. There is enough item that I collected to publish them.
Now, when I was looking up some information about you, I found that on Smashwords you have 3 books written. Now, I apologize if I mispronounced the name of each of these books slightly, Nitz deserts, Durga deserts, and Freya deserts.
Yep.
Without
Yep.
spoiling too much of each of your books, what are each of your books about?
Uh, um, so my books, in fact, are a collection of thoughts. It's how I could define them. So it's through reading. It's idea that comes from living, reading a lot. So there are comments about all subjects, basically. So all subjects that I like writing about, but all subjects as well, because idea that I find interesting, idea from others of idea that came to me just through the experience of living and reading and thinking.
Now, a couple of months ago, this was back in February of this year, a company called Drafted Digital, which is a major book self-publishing platform, announced that they had acquired Smashwords, meaning that the two companies are now under the same ownership, although Smashwords appears to still be operating as a subsidiary of Drafted Digital at this time. What are your thoughts about the current landscape of the book self-publishing industry?
Um, I could. I've got just a thought that I think that should be could be interesting is that I had a very lot. I wouldn't have thought it was so difficult only to register a book. Like on national libraries such as the French one, or English of USA or Canadian one, they don't take the book easily. In the US, you have to pay, and I wonder if they don't only take they give you an ISBN number, and that's all. So to record, to secure your rights and so forth, one, it has made be very difficult or impossible, or you need a paper version. It's very complicated on website, and when you've got a problem, you can't get through. No one is gonna be answering you. So, me, I think for self-publishing, because you can't rely on a publisher to keep your book safe. At least a little bit, at least partly, at least they are somewhere, because if you are lucky enough, well, some people have them. It's just the simple preservation of a book, of a unit, and to preserve their integrity as well. That is to say, their copyright. It's been extremely difficult. I spent days trying to do so, and yeah, it's very, very poorly affected. So I think copyrights are really not protected. About self-publishing, you mentioned Smashword. It's my favorite one. It's been so long ago I published them that I think it's because one, you've got the option of it being free. My book is there, but is for free. It's available entirely, so people just click and read. Yeah, because I'm on Smashbook, because I know that my book is there, so it's a way of protecting it digitally, and it's there, and it's very easy for reader. There is no hint of money. You can sell it, but if you say I sell it for zero, no one is gonna ask you for your card, for uh, for your credit or debit card. No one is asking you for that, and it's nice format. So you mentioned Smashword, and he happens to be my favorite. He was, though there's problem with Smash Words because uh, there is a lot of what I've written that can't be uploaded. I can't upload it because there are special characters in it, tables and so forth. And they want me to rectify my documents in order to be able to publish it, and I didn't. So that was the limitation. Yeah, I guess there's a platform, but I think it's like a bit with other things on the web is that you are expecting 20, 30 maybe platform to be ready available, and in fact when you try them, there are so many complications when trying to use them. Sometimes there's bugs as well that you end up trying. That's a lot in blogs when you try to publish a little bit big document. Then it fails. You think it's done, and in fact it hasn't been done. Bon, and option, because a lot of it is free, but the options are very limited. Uh, I'm hosting my website is hosted by Blogger, which is a Google product, but the option on Google is it makes it so difficult to use it. And still be reader friendly, and without having to spend weeks on end making it usable, basically. Very, very few options. Yeah, that's the main criticism.
I'm going to pivot here to some human rights, a couple of human rights related questions. The first of these is, what originally motivated you to become a human rights advocate?
I'll go for one is interest in people, and two would be the to realize that about ill treatment, about institutional ill treatment, about I think for me in yeah, one of the things that puzzled me and stirred me the most is to realize that sometimes it's you think that people are care of, yes, you think that they are in the environment when they can develop and that they are safe and so forth, and you found out that is not the case. So because human rights, this is a bit coming back to human rights history. Human rights academically, the moment where it started developed, started to develop as a field in academia and in politics and so forth, right? It has been a lot that human rights is so the right of every human beings, and that therefore it's universal, but it's also individual. And what happened is that it was compared against the state power against an individuals. So it means that human rights historically, I'm not saying because of course you've got right holder and right bearer, it is called, so it means that if you have got a right people are supposed to upholding it and respecting it and not infringing it, but also helping the situation in order that your rights are observed and respected. Yeah, but yeah, historically, human rights is it's a little bit connected with state abuse. So, for example, when you think of care, when you think of caring industry, you think that you can feel happy that if children are looked after by the states, which you do because obviously if the state apparatus was not there to protect vulnerable children, then for sure the situation will be really worse. But having said that, and it's not me saying it, it's statistics. It's just as objective and as state statistics that children in care are really hugely more likely to be prey to drugs, to the sexual exploitation industry, and so forth. And why these children who become adults are victims of this is because of the care industry in itself, where children are not properly don't get a proper education, are not cared enough, right? So they end up doing nothing during their day, and you know that when teenagers do nothing during their day, but they are trying on their own, their main models are other kids that are, so you know, but it's like saying it like this, it's frivolous, you know, it's almost amusing, but the situation of it, the consequences of not being um, nurtured by adults, or not going to you know, not being pushed towards school, and to be protected from gangs, protected from quote unquote communities that would abuse the vulnerability of communities, or people abusing the vulnerability of poverty, of lack of connection, of emotional difficulty, of not being, you know, of not having caring parents or caring guardians doing their job properly. That is to say, giving you a future, basically. Yeah. When you are in this kind of situation, the consequences is maybe not a lack of abuse, because but yes, yes, I mean, the best I can do to illustrate that is to know that when you are from a care background, you are much more likely to end up in prostitution, for example. Yeah. Well, it tells a tale. Yeah. I mean, it gives you an idea of horrid the situations in. So I'm not saying horrid. I'm not saying I'm not saying they are abused by their carers, or, you know, I'm not hitting at these big scandals that obviously have happened, but it's not what I'm saying. Is that the normal condition of kids in care are yes, it's too much neglect, too much disempowerment as well from the carer side, who can't do much to help because it's not structure. They are let, so it's the result when you let teenagers without, I don't know, fighting for sports, activity, homework, and so forth, well, it's very easy. The opportunity for activities in the street is gonna be drugs, basically. So, and all of what it may imply. And if even being less talking about something less serious than that is simply if you are not uh, uh, le- if you don't have the opportunity to get on with your job, right? To get on with your school and so forth. Well, professionally, professionally, it's gonna be very hard to go and to find a way of inserting yourself in society. Yeah. So it's kind of of attitudes and yes. I'm not the best to talk about this thing anyhow, but the stats are there. If you are from a care, if you have been in care, the proportion of you ending into this more than a full situation are really higher. So there is a reason for that.
I have only one more question for this interview.
Yep.
And you haven't really, to my knowledge, blogged about the ongoing Russian invasion of Ukraine, but what are your thoughts about Russia's invasion of Ukraine?
You know, me, it's a bit of the question around my blog is that my opinions might be sometimes a little bit raw, and after you read and so it's not like I'm knowledgeable, but I think to me, yeah, to me, but not someone that is really read on the subject, right? But to me, this is the start of World War III. Yeah, in fact, this has been my first reaction, right? And it's kind of now what I think as well is that it could simply be the start of a war from against Russia against Europe. That simply could be because simply with this added information that we are talking about NATO, and that it would be possible, for example, certainly or probably if Trump was still in power, that the US would withdraw from the deal of defending each other in case of problem. Yeah. That under Trump, probably it would have been that, huh? Since under Trump is the US stating that they don't want to go to war anywhere else unless there's petrol to take, and petrol over things, but I think I would link this with human trafficking, because when we talk about this possibility of World War III and so forth, is that, and yeah, Russia, to me, yeah, Russia doing this is about to cause so many problems that is gonna be weakening security, and then there is a possibility, just like the Cold War, of conflicts exploding everywhere. I don't know, Russia, for example, I think now are buying mercenaries from Syria to prolong the war. we've gonna. This is the. It's what I've heard on French radios, and yeah. Um, only this. It's not only obviously if you live in Ukraine, yeah. But the situation in which we are now, with this country invading another country, and just leading to a blockage and so forth. So we know that Ukraine is one of the breadbasket of Europe, but most even more the breadbasket of Africa. So if things are staying this way, they will have a food shortage in Africa first. Europe already have modified the way they harvest. There used to be a furlough system where peasants had to farmers had to keep some percentage of their land resting because it increased biodiversity, and you need less you need less chemical to try to nourish your land and so forth, right? So it has been done for biodiversity and food security as well, because it's replenishing your land. And since there's this absolutely huge problem with wheat delivery from Russia and Ukraine, Europe say no, we stop the furlough, yeah. And we also this agriculture depends on pesticides, unfortunately, because it poisons everything, yeah. But as it is, it depends on pesticides, and pesticides happen to come from Russia. It needs to be enriched by gas. So in Europe, you will have very quickly a problem with pesticides too. So, if even if things stay like this, they're gonna apparently is gonna be a problem with food shortage in Africa, and starting to be difficult here. With many also herbicide I don't know at which minerals and so forth, but a shortage of minerals that are very essential to everyday's appliances and so forth. But to me, yes, it's the kind of a trumpet sound of World War III, because even if it's not even if it's possible that it stays localized in Europe, the world is in so much chaos. But it's where I link to human trafficking, is because when I talk about human trafficking, people have this question: is that, but do you think that we campaign is gonna get better or what? Yeah, but in the and it's why my guess is that the mass media don't even bother talk about how this plague is there and everywhere. In the US, in particular, human trafficking is big in the US. I mean, the porn industry is feeding it, and the mafias and whatever have you, and also a migrant situation where you can exploit people that in Turkey. If you are a migrant, there's people just having to sell their kidneys to survive. It is a reality. It is not like a dark alley story. It is something that is here, and that is now, and that certainly doesn't is treated by the mainstream media. They are not conspiracy theories at all yet. It is treated by the main media, but the mass media, no. So there is a very serious um, attempt a very serious reporting from very serious I don't know, things like the Times and then that try to report on it. But who buys the time? I mean, who can afford it for a first, right? And but it's on the internet by serious website and companies and so forth. But yes, is the same. I would say for human trafficking. I don't see how it could improve because everything else, it's water shortage, food security, more and more greed with less and less, in a planet that is dying, that is already dying because of what humanity did to it. Yeah? Enfin, at least a part of humanity that, did to it. Right? So, yeah. So for me, it's just the World War III. But me, but I'm not ready enough to for it to be relevant. Yeah, but that Russia started it certainly. It's almost dumb because why not? Huh? In 2014, they invaded the Crimea and they started invaded Ukraine. So it's just in line with their general behavior, basically. But a really big fear that Russia would be welcome because it's a kleptocracy, because it will appeal to mafias, because no, Russia, who have a small economy. Huh? Russian economy is a small one. Huh? The pocket of poverty is dreadful, huh, in Russia. Yes, I mean Russia. We have a situation in Africa because Russian mercenaries are all over Africa, as the Chinese government is creating debt situation, buying harbors. So if Russia is involved, we certainly will have a situation in Africa. Yeah.
Well, Cetvies, thank you for appearing on the Heartland Author podcast.
Thank you very much for having me, Aaron. It was a pleasure.
Cetvies was a wonderful guest for this podcast, and I thank Cetvies for agreeing to appear on this podcast. Before I sign off, I have a special announcement regarding the future of the Heartland Author podcast. For those of you who use Amazon Music, the Heartland Author podcast is now available on Amazon Music. I only recently became aware of Amazon Music's podcast streaming capabilities, and a couple of days ago, I was able to submit this podcast's RSS feed to Amazon. I try to make this podcast as widely available as I possibly can, and adding this podcast to Amazon Music is another step forward in that regard. This is Aaron Apollo Camp reminding y'all to write your imagination. Bye for now. You can learn more about me and my book writing projects at authoraac.wordpress.com. You can also follow me on Facebook and Twitter at authoraac. You can also watch videos on the Heartland Author channel on YouTube. Copyright 2022, Aaron Apollo Camp, all rights reserved. This podcast episode is intended for the private listening of its audience. Any reuse or retransmission of this podcast episode without the express written consent of the podcast host is prohibited except under fair use guidelines. Royalty-free music and sound effects obtained from https://www.zapsplat.com.